Right then, how are you all doing? So this one is about maintenance. So maintenance of our drones. What is the maintenance schedule? Well, what do you have to do? Now, you're going to do your pre-flights, so you're always checking your propellers, you're always checking your mounting fixings before you go fly. However, in the manual, hopefully, for your aircraft, there should be something that says every 50 hours check something. And if there isn't, you should come up with a way to do like maintenance checks. So you've got to think that after so many flights or so many hours of flying, you're going to do the basics of a check for maintenance, and you just gotta make sure your motors are still moving freely, or your locking system, your mechanism in your arms, it's all nice and good. Look at that, nice and stiff. Just go around checking your aircraft. Now, you will do this before pre-flight, typically anyway, as you unfold your aircraft, but you should be logging and looking after. Now, the A2CFC, the certificate of something, doesn't require you to have a logbook about your aircraft. However, if this was GVC, you would say every 50 hours or so often, I will give my aircraft a once over. You're going to take it up, you can check, yeah, the wiring's good, battery connectors are good, no loose wiring showing, my gimbal's good, there's nothing loose in there, the aircraft's not been scratched, damaged, dropped, everything's looking good. And you would sign it off and say, yeah, my aircraft's in good nick still, thank you very much. Now, the A2CFC doesn't require that, but they do talk about it as the CA wants you to do it, kind of thing, but they don't give any strict things on it. Now, this also brings us to firmware updates, because they're part of maintenance. When should you do a firmware update? So here's the ultimate question. When do you do it? No firmware can be guaranteed to be perfect. We've all seen it over the years where firmware updates have not gone well. So some people have a policy where they will stay on the version they are on, which is fine. You can have that policy. Some people have a policy where they will just update it blindly straight away. Mine is generally I will update my aircraft once I've seen what's gone on the web. That's how I generally do it. Now, what we used to teach, or what I used to teach when I used to work for an RAE, think of it like this. If you were flying and your aircraft suddenly went out of control, it hit, and we're just going to go with worst case, and hit someone, be it a young child, and you ended up in court, and you're trying to explain what happened to the judge, what happened, or whoever's investigating it. And they go, well, hang on a minute, but there was an update that came out a month ago or a week ago. Why didn't you do this software update? Because apparently it would have stopped your little aircraft flying off and doing what it did. So why didn't you do the update? And then you have to explain that to the judge. However, now let's flip it. Same situation, you're in front of the judge, you're explaining what happened, and you're going, well, I did this software update, judge, look. It's in my log, you can quite clearly see it's in my maintenance log, look. I did this update a month ago, and it's been behaving perfectly well since, but I didn't know up until, 2 days ago that this problem happened, and this was after the accident that it introduced this problem to my aircraft. I wasn't to know, I was just doing what the manufacturer gave me. How could I have known what was going to happen? And therefore, the emphasis on the safety part of it and what the drone actually did is now kind of, it's no longer your fault, if you like. You can prove that firmware has introduced that problem from the manufacturer, and the judge will go, or the investigators go, to the manufacturer, we need to know more about this problem, because it wasn't you, the remote pilot's fault. It went off and did its thing. It was a bug that they introduced. So it gets quite interesting. So the Enterprise Advanced version of this, for example, for a long time has been moaning about battery updates. So if you fly the battery and then you charge it and then you fly again the same day or the next day, it says update the firmware again. Now, a company I know asks us DGI about this, and DGI says, well, just ignore the update. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do it. So the company then wrote back and says, yes, but if there's an accident, then you're liable because the log would show that you didn't do the update even though the battery was good. If you get what I'm saying. So you can't ignore it because just for safety reasons, you've got to sit there and let it do it for 3 minutes. They've now fixed that on the Enterprise Advanced. So now they fix the firmware issue, so it shouldn't moan every time you do a firmware battery update. When you fly, you put the battery back in after a charge, it shouldn't ask. It should now acknowledge that that firmware in the battery is okay. Because, trust me, it's a real problem when you've got a lot to do. And every battery that you flew yesterday and you're flying again, the same batteries today, you've got to do the firmware update. You just can't ignore it. Because if you did, accident, log shows you didn't do it, you're in front of the judge again. So, firmware updates, food for thought on that. Listen to what your RAE says. Do you do it straight away? Do you wait a week? Do you wait a month? It's a tough one. I've given you the scenarios, think about it. Okay? Righty. Have a good one. Safe flying, everyone.